Tell me when we're good to go. Okay, we're starting to have participants. Hi, everybody. If you can hear me clearly and see my video clearly, if you could just, in the chat box, just say yes. That'll help us know that we are audible to you. Great, all right. Okay. We'll wait for a couple more minutes. We'll see if a few of our more friends join us, and then we can start soon. I'm seeing the numbers go up, so that's great. Okay, we should start in about 2 minutes. Let's see how many more people want to join us. Okay. All right, this looks great. We have more people joining. So while we wait for the others, if you folks can just type in what city you're joining us from, that'll help me understand whether you're from India, you're from outside. We have Mumbai, Kurukshetra, great, Kerala, Chennai. Awesome, some more from Mumbai, great. And if you can also type in if you're looking for master's or bachelor's degree abroad, so that'll help me also understand how many students are here looking for what type of programs. Okay, we have a bunch of masters, MBA. Okay, MBA. Perfect. Okay, folks, so we'll get started and we'll see. I'm sure a lot more people will join us. It's a Saturday, so it's a little sluggish. I know it's Saturday afternoon. That's good. I am in the US, so for me, it's pretty much late night. It's 1 a.m., but this is something we've been doing for quite some time, and we found that Saturday afternoons seem to be working the best. So we thought, why not do it? So thank you very much for joining. Depending on where you are, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to you. And some of you might be students, some of you might be parents, but in both cases, I'm sure you're interested in learning more about prospects of a master's degree abroad, especially in the US and Canada. We will talk about those in detail in this webinar. We'll touch upon a little bit of what each countries look for and how you should be thinking about your application for a master's degree. We'll focus more on MBA and masters, little less on bachelor's, unless we have folks joining in for bachelor's as well, right? So the way this webinar is going to be done is, today's webinar will be focused at a very high level on the whole master's and MBA process overseas. In future webinars, we will drill it down even further, and we'll talk about financial aid, scholarships, costs, visas, travel and living, just about everything that you need to know before you even take that step outside of your country to study, right? Most of you folks are from India. This webinar is solely focused on Indian students. So you'll see a lot of statistics around what Indian students aim for and which countries they go to, right? Um, Feel free to send us all your questions on chat. We will take them up at the end of the webinar. I'll make sure that we have at least a good 15 minutes to sit and talk about your questions, right? Because these webinars are built for you. I don't want to be going on and on about what study abroad is and show you my slides. I'll do that to give you information. But again, it's more about answering your questions. And of course, in the future, there's our team that's always out there to answer your questions as well, right? So a little bit about myself. Let me introduce you quickly. My name is Ashish Fernando, and I'm the founder of iSchool Connect. I've been in the industry for more than 10 years. I've worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, helping them build their network, their databases. For the last 3 years, my focus has been completely higher education, right? So through my own experience, when I came here to the US about 9 years ago, to do my MBA. I finished that, and I then got involved in a lot of educational initiatives in the US. Started working with Google for higher education on a lot of their projects. I also have a double master's. I did my MBA, but also a master's in biotechnology from India. And my MBA in the US, I did with 100% scholarship, right? And that was actually the first kind of push for me to say, I need to now take all the knowledge that I gained and put it into a company. And that's how we formed iSchool Connect. We're a team of about 40 people based mostly in Boston and India. And our whole goal is to help students like you who are deserving and who want to go abroad and build their future, right? So looking forward to talk to you guys in the future, answer all your questions and help you as well. Okay, so who we are in general, right? We are higher education consultants, and most of you must be familiar with these two pictures that we're showing, right? This is the Harry Potter series. And we think of ourselves to be like what Professor Dumbledore was to all those students, right? So it's about understanding each of your profiles, each of your personalities, and that's what we think we are good at. In understanding what your individual needs are when it comes to getting a higher education abroad, and then finding the right fit for you and also helping you build that future goal, right? That's kind of what we are known for and what we vouch for all the time. Here's a very quick summary of what we do. Basically, we're building a single application for all master's programs and bachelor's programs across the globe. So through iSchool Connect, students can actually not just find programs, but also apply to all of them through the single portal. We're building a lot of technology to help you folks. So there's everything from conversational chatbots to help you figure out, which are the programs you fit in and how you can get help, all the way to even assistants that will assess your essays and documents and statements of purposes in real time and give you feedback on what you need to improve on. And then when your application is complete and you go in for a visa interview or say an MBA student interview, we also have tools that will help you get better at those video interviews. That will help analyze your body language, how you come across to an admissions officer. All of that is all built into the platform. So that's what we aim at doing, right? Okay, you can read more about us. You can just Google iSchool Connect Higher Education, Google, and you'll literally find links from google.com because we work a lot with them closely. I'm going to leave that for later. We will jump right into our game plan for today, right? So our goal today is to discuss 5 very important things. One is, when you're thinking of masters, should you go for a traditional master's program or an MBA? And what are those things you need to consider before making that decision? We look at the different admission seasons that you can apply for and which ones are more beneficial. We look at areas of your profile that you need to focus on for each of those. And then we'll go a little bit into the aspects of evaluation. We'll see what is it that admissions offices are really looking for and what is it that you need to put into your profile. and then we'll go into the student segment talking about the student, right? Okay, 5 questions, right? This is what I did when I first went in for my MBA. And this is what I tell a lot of our students. I advise you strongly to sit down, keep your phones away, keep everything, your computers, everything away for a weekend, and just spend time answering these 5 questions. What stage of education are you in, and are you happy with that stage, right? Some of you might be, since I saw a lot of people saying they're interested in masters and MBA, my guess is you're either in the third or final year, third year, final year, depending on which type of bachelor's degree you're in almost that cusp of your bachelor's degree, and now you're thinking of, okay, do I need another master's, right? So you need to be sure that you're at the right stage to start thinking about your master's program. Do not be thinking about it when you're in your 12th grade or in college, right? You're not gonna be the same person 3 years later. So save yourself that time, do other things, have fun, but remember that at least a year or 2 in advance of you having to go for a master's, that's when you want to start thinking about whether it's the right program for you. The second important question is, what are your main goals, right? So remember that every year there's more than 4 million students who go abroad to study, but not all 4 million get jobs abroad, right? Less than 25 to 30% of them get jobs abroad. And the biggest reason for that is students are not really convinced on why they're actually going abroad. They want to go because it sounds fancy, it sounds cool that I'm getting a master's degree from the US. But you want to really nail down those goals. Is it really a job that I want? Is it education that I want? I want to have a different style of education and then come back and work here in my country, maybe run our family business, right? The other thing is, a lot of students go abroad just because they want to see a different land, like go to the US, go around the US. So now you're not really looking for a top 10 or top 20 school, but you're looking for a school that's well placed for you to just have that experience and come back. So those are important things to consider, especially when you're thinking of MBA programs. You need to be very careful that one of your goals should be that you should be able to get a program which gives you diversity in the class. There are programs that I know of where 80% of the class is Indian, even though it's a US university, right? Avoid those kind of programs when you're thinking about your MBA, because you will not get that different experience that you might be expecting. You might come here and realize, oh, it's a class of Indians, and they all think the same way about business. They all think the same way about any particular story or use case that's given to the class. So be very careful. Look at profiles of previous classes. Typically, every university will put that on their website. So if it's 2019 now, you can go to their websites and search for the 2018 class profile. Just look at who those students are, what countries they come from, right? Make sure your goals for going abroad are set right, because that will play a lot into your admissions itself, depending on whether you want a job, whether you want to go there and come back. The third important question to answer is, which country? This is very, very important, folks. You have to understand what each country stands for. Do not go with the fact that, okay, my friends went to Germany and there's free education there. Or somebody says, oh, I saw on the news, the US is having a lot of issues with visa. No, just don't go with all these fake news and rumors and what your friends are doing. Think about it carefully for yourself, okay? Like a lot of the news you might be hearing right now is, oh, the US is really hard when it comes to immigration. But think of it, still, US is by far the largest intake country for students across the globe, even with all these issues. The second country which is Canada, takes less than half of what the US takes, right? So there might be all these legal things going on, but still the US is considered to be a very great place to come and study, right? The fourth important question is my dream program. So if you're a computer science student, for instance, or you're going for your MBA, you have to narrow it down to exactly what field or what course you want to take. If you just go broad, then you're going to end up in the wrong school, right? So as an example, MIT and Harvard are very highly ranked in the US. I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure a lot of you are dreaming to go to those kind of programs. But if you go deeper, what you'll realize is that if you're a computer science student and you're looking for computer science masters, then even though Harvard ranks really well overall, you'll see that it does not rank well for computer science, right? Whereas MIT ranks very high for computer science as well as MBA. So it's very important. Don't go with just the ranking and don't just think that, okay, yeah, I don't care, I'm just going for computer science. Nail down to the level of detail where you say, I'm interested in doing data science, or when it's a business degree, I'm interested in doing international business or corporate reform, something of that nature, because there are schools that are very specific for each of these fields, and you have to know that in detail. We're obviously there are companies like iSchool Connect where you can get help from. There are parents and friends you can talk to, get help from. In the end, nothing is going to be better than your own research, right? So do some research of your own for sure. Fifth question is, what do I expect from my life while studying abroad? This kind of ties into what your goals are, question number 2, but write it down. Make your 10-year goals, right? 10 years later, where do I see myself? Do I expect myself working for a US company? In which case, you also should know that being Indian, you will be on a work visa for a pretty long time, typically about 10 to 12 years. You will be on a work visa until you get your green card, which is the permanent residence in the US. Similar with other countries. So because there's a lot of competition from India, wait times are much higher when it comes to permanent residencies. It's, of course, I'm sure a lot of you know Australia and Canada are more favorable when it comes to PR or permanent residence, but the US is a little tight when it comes to that, right? So these are questions you might want to really think about. Okay, so just to give you some statistics on where Indian students actually go to study, right? So like I said, the US is by far more than double the next country. The US takes about 2 lakh Indian students every year. Canada comes next, and Canada is growing very heavily. Takes about 1 lakh students, mix of masters, bachelor's degree, and when I say masters, MBA included, right? New Zealand and Australia are very popular destinations for students to go to, but remember that these countries have very few universities, and job prospects are, of course, lower compared to the US and Canada, right? US and Canada are a little tougher to get through, and it's easier to find more programs, but it's harder to get through. Australia is kind of flipped. It might be a little easier to get through, but then post-study job prospects are also sort of slim when it comes to the amount of salary you can make or the kind of jobs you can get, right? So this is just a quick rundown for you. Bahrain, China. China is coming up. By the way, 5 years ago, China wouldn't even be on this list. Our students were never going there, but there are some really good universities that are coming up in China. It might take a few years for it to become a full English English language delivered program. Like China, there's a lot of things that happen still in Chinese. So you might want to avoid it to the best possible, right? But that's still a prospect. UK, Germany, France, and Russia. Russia is, again, well known for medicine programs for Indian students. A lot of them go there, right? Okay. How do these destinations compare? So we've done a lot of research from our side, and this is a lot of information and feedback we get from our students as well. And we decided to put it on a nice little chart for all of you to understand, right? So we compared 6 countries based on 4 criteria that really matter to students who go abroad. So if you're thinking master's traditional programs, and your focus has to be research, right? You're thinking of doing some computer science related research or medical research, and you want to go ahead and do your PhD, the US is by far the place to be, right? It has a lot of funding from the federal government and from private organizations for research. So a lot of the schools in the US are well funded. They work with companies and do a lot of research. The other countries are a sort of lagging behind, but the next best would be UK, right? When it comes to career prospects, again, the Americas are much better. USA and Canada are both doing really well when it comes to post-study job prospects, right? The typical, if you think of it, the typical salary that a computer science, especially a data science graduate gets in the US is upwards of $120,000, right? There is no country that will match that salary when it comes to that kind of a skill set. Same with an MBA. In the US, even though the UK is where MBA was actually born, the English were the ones who started MBA, but if you look at career prospects, the UK ranks very low. A lot of people who go there to do their MBA have to actually come back to India and find a job here. Don't mistake me, it's a good program. Even if you come back to India, a UK MBA will hold really strong when you apply to a job. So if you're compared against an Indian student who has studied at even an IIM, you will be placed at either that level or higher, depending on which university you go to. But the US and Canada stand strong over there, right? When it comes to costs, so the interesting thing with costs is that Canada is become a very popular destination because it's giving a lot of scholarships to students. Even though you'll see, when you look at a program, you might see that the cost is high, but you also should note that you will get good scholarships in Canada, also in Singapore. So I want to make one point here that when you look at any university, don't say, oh, I cannot go here because the costs are high. Do not make that mistake. I tell this to my students again and again. When I applied for my MBA, it showed $75,000 per year for my MBA. There was no way I could afford even half of that, but I got 100% scholarship, which means I did not have to pay the $75,000, right? I only paid for my living expenses. So you need to talk to either someone like us, or you need to be very prudent in understanding that if you have a good profile, schools will give you a scholarship, right? The US we're giving it a 3-star. It's not a 4, because the US, even if you get a 50% scholarship, sometimes the costs become a little higher. But like I said, don't let cost be your first burden. First, think about what you want. What are your goals? Why do you want to do it? And then you get to costs. Once you get convinced that the other side has said, oh yeah, that's the max, you have to pay this amount, that's when you can decide whether you want to go forward or not. Scholarships. The US, even though costs are high, scholarships are also very, very high. So you get a lot of federal funding, especially if you're a local student. But even if you come from India, like a lot of people told me, Ashish, MBA, you won't get any scholarship. It's very hard in the US. It's very expensive. Do not believe them, folks, right? In the end, it's all about convincing an institution that they deserve you as much as you deserve them, right? And you need to get to that. Every school has a pool of money that they will give out in scholarships, even if it's a Howard or a Wharton. I've known students who've gone through us. Harvard costs about $150,000 to $200,000, but they spent less than $30,000 because they got scholarships. So be aware of that fact for sure. Okay. So that brings us to that big question, right? MS or MBA. So what is it that I should do? A lot of you must be either working professionals or in your final year of bachelor's degree. Now you're thinking, okay, I'm at a fork and I have to think through where I really want to go. So a simple way to think of it is this, right? If you want to choose a degree, you could be one of Kylie or Rob, right? you finished a bachelor's degree in India. And then you either have a master's degree like Kylie, she's done a master's degree in computer science from United States, or you're working at a company right now. So the way you want to look at it is two tracks. A business track will always lead you to become someone like a head of a function, right? In case of Rob, like he's the head of marketing. Whereas a core track, like a computer science track, will always lead you to become the head of, like a head of the back end, right? So like a software architect in case of computer science. In case of, say, you go for accounting and finance, you'll become the head of audit or the senior auditor, but you will always be involved in some day-to-day activities. That's the way you want to look at it, right? Whereas if you're doing MBA, you'll be doing more of management. You will be looking at people and understanding your team and managing projects. So you have to understand who you are. And the way I ask people to do it is, where do you see yourself in 10 years, right? Do you see yourself as a person who really wants to sit down there and code? You really love code when you see what happens when you hit that button and you see the code work? Or, you know, you look at documents and you like what's in the document, you're a very data oriented person, that's where you want to be. Then you want to think of doing a master's degree. That's not an MBA, right? That's a traditional program. Whereas if you're a very people person, you enjoy being with people, you like taking care of projects and understanding what the end goal is, you're a visionary, or you want to be a visionary where you think about the future of a business, then you want to think of doing an MBA. But what's very important is that if you see in these two tracks, the work experience is missing in case of Kylie, right? So a master's degree in a traditional track does not really require you to have any work experience, but strongly recommended if you're going for an MBA, you should have at least 2 years of work experience, right? There will be a lot of schools who will say that they're okay with 0 to 2 years of experience, but where you will fall out short is at the end of it when you're applying for a job, when you're going for an interview. Because remember, the market is very competitive. It doesn't matter if it's India or the US or UK, it's always very competitive. And work experience matters a lot when it comes to an MBA. So reconsider your decisions. If you're thinking of going for an MBA without work experience, you can do it, but the only scenario would be that you should be okay with a 90% chance of you having to come back, right, and work on your business or start something here. So think of it very carefully. If your profile is very strong, then there is a chance that you can do well. But again, talk to people, understand whether your profile is good enough to go there without any experience and do your MBA. Okay. Here's a quick timeline. Okay. So when you think of applying, you should start 12 months early, right? You should start researching your schools at least 12 months in advance. And by the time you are 3 months later, like around the 9-month mark, you should already start university applications, right? So if you're applying for, say, fall of next year, which is August of next year, then now is almost, it's going to be the 12-month mark. So you will have to start researching schools in the next month or two. So not, after the next 3 months, you will kickstart your university applications. It doesn't matter if you have full idea of what the application looks like. Just start an application. It's free, right? And then you will see what's required in an application. It will give you ideas of what you need to do. At least 7 months before your joining date, you have to start drafting all your essays, your letters of recommendation, your resume, statements of purposes. All of that has to happen at the 7-month mark. You have to start applying for scholarships. So take a screenshot of this. This will be very helpful. If you guys need the slide deck, let us know. We will also send you the slide deck, doesn't matter. But take a snapshot here so you understand where you stand and what you need to do. Mark it in your calendars that I have to, do X, Y, Z things. 3 months before you go, you need to make sure you're applying for your student visa. So remember that it's a very unexpected thing in India. A typical wait times for visa interviews at the US consulate can range from 2 to 3 months. So if you apply late for a visa and you don't get it by the time you have to be there for your program, you will not be able to join. All your hard work will go in vain. So you have to apply for your visa on time, right? Which means that before the visa, you have to have something called an I-20. It's the document from the school that says, yes, this student has been accepted, this is the scholarship, and now you can use that to apply for your visa, right? So that's a quick timeline. All right. Okay, so we saw MS versus MBA, we saw the timeline. Now, spring versus fall, right? In India, we don't talk about seasons as spring and fall, but just for you guys to know, it's easy to understand. Spring would mean beginning of the year, and fall is middle of the year. Just think of it that way, right? Spring is January, fall is around August. There are two intakes that happen in the US and other countries. And here's a quick way for you to look at it. Again, take a screenshot if you want. But the fall intake, so let's talk about both of these a little bit, right? The fall intake is by far the most preferred intake, not just for students, but also for institutions. So if you're thinking, oh yeah, it's now June, I can go for spring intake in January, remember that you will have very less options to apply for. Spring is not a very popular intake. Also, scholarships are less for the spring intake. So as much as possible, you folks should aim for the fall intake, which the program initiates in August. This is how applications work, right? So there's 3 rounds of applications typically. The first round, again, I've given you the months when these rounds close. So for fall, the first round closes around the month of January. So if you're applying for August 2020, round 1 of those application admission cycles will close in January 2020. Round 3 will close by April 2020. The more rounds that close, the lesser the chance of getting a good scholarship. Also, the lesser chances of getting an admit because seats are getting filled up, right? So make sure to apply in the round 1, max round 2 deadlines. Do not go beyond that because you will be on the losing side. Even if that makes you lose $10,000, that's a lot of money, right? That's about 7 lakh Indian rupees. So think about it, right? After the R3, it's typically a rolling application, which means they will accept applications as they come till they fill their seats. Okay, that's how things work, but avoid this section. Avoid R3 and rolling as much as possible. Okay. So just a few examples, right? The universities on the top will accept your application for spring and fall. So these are some really popular universities: University of Southern California, University of Toronto in Canada, New York University, and Newcastle. These are all universities that give you the full set of courses and degrees for you to apply in spring or in fall. But you see, there are also popular universities in the second line on my slide. These are very good universities, but they only have a fall intake. They do have very small certificate kind of programs in the spring intake. So you'll miss out on these. Princeton, McGill, these are very well-known universities. Penn State is a public university in the US, takes about 14,000 students a year, and gives a lot of scholarship. It's a public university, state-run university. So remember that these kind of universities are very affordable. So you don't want to miss on the fall deadlines. Okay, I'm rushing a little bit because I want to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to talk to you quickly about what are areas of your profile that you need to build on, right? So there's going to be 2 slides. This one is for students looking at a master's degree. So you have to know that your profile should have some key elements in order for you to get a good good profile, good universities and scholarships. So your academics have to be spot on. I cannot stress more on the fact that Your GPA matters a lot. So focus on your final year exams, focus on your third year, wherever you are. Don't say, oh my God, I've lost it, done, 2 years gone, now I cannot recuperate. Even a single point percentage on your GPA will make a lot of difference. So please remember that, okay? Any research projects that you have done has to be highlighted in your applications really well, because master's is very research focused. Any publications you have or can do, it could be international journals or national journals. These are great to add to your profile. They add a lot of value. Internships, certifications, again, great. If you have any work experience, even though master's doesn't need work experience, again, it's considered a lot to strengthen your profile when you're compared against somebody who has everything else similar, right? So you'll have a lot of people with the same scores, with, you know, done some internships and certifications. Work experience will then become your X factor. It will get you above when they sort through all the students. A statement of purpose, that's the last very important thing. So every school is looking for your motivation, right? They're looking for, is this the right student for me? Are they going to complete the program with flying colors and add to the value and the brand of my institution? That's how they're thinking of it. So you have to also think in their shoes. You have to know that you might probably have a low GRE score, or you might have some low academic scores, but it's also about the purpose. If you're able to clearly outline what your purpose in life is and why that program in that institution is going to help you, it will add immense value, right? So make use of things like the iSchool Connect statement of purpose tool. Talk to counselors, we have them as well. But again, doesn't matter if you're with us or anywhere else, it's about creating that good statement of purpose. Okay, for folks doing MBA, here's your list. Again, academics help a lot, but you'll see all the other items are more around leadership, right? So you have to show leadership initiatives. You have to run organizations. You have to lead teams in your companies or at your schools. You have to show that you have involved yourself in clubs and social work. So I cannot, by the way, stress enough on social work. If you guys have even 1 year left or 6 months left, find an organization and get involved. Even 6 months of social work will prove a lot in the fact that you actually care about people. Because in business, the #1 rule is that they're looking for whether you are a people person, whether you care about teams, whether you can manage projects. So social work will add a lot to your profile. So think about it that way. Network as much as you can, build connections, build your LinkedIn profile. We'll do a separate webinar just on building your social profile, about how your Facebook should look, how your LinkedIn pages should look. But the more connections you add on LinkedIn, the better it is for you, because schools do look at your social profiles, guys. So remember that, right? So these are important aspects for an MBA. We will touch upon these in our future webinars for sure. Right now, I'm keeping it at a very high level. Okay, here are some trending programs on iSchool Connect. This is what a lot of students search for these days, and they're in good demand. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. These three go hand in hand. There's slight variations. Personally, I'm a big machine learning enthusiast. I am a machine learning and AI consultant myself at heart. So if you're trying to engage yourself in those kind of programs, please talk to us. Other than those, psychology, biotechnology, and chemical engineering are kind of the programs that are hot in the market right now. In the next 2 or 3 years, these are the kind of programs that will actually lead you to a higher probability of landing a good job. It doesn't matter if you're in India or you're abroad, right? So think about these. MBA, these are the kind of MBA tracks that are getting a lot of push on iSchool Connect. A lot of students applying for international management, business analytics, logistics, marketing, finance, and entrepreneurship. Guys, business analytics is very interesting. It's coming up. Same with marketing analytics. think about analytics. When you combine an MBA program with an analytics program, it literally converts your management degree into something called a STEM qualified program, right? It qualifies it as a higher program, which gives you higher chances, a lot of good benefits. So when you club your MBA with something like an analytics program, you do 6 extra months, but then you get a dual degree, which is an MS plus an MBA. And it's immensely valuable when it comes to anything from visas, permanent residence, getting job. Think about it, talk to us about that as well. Okay. Trending universities for MS degrees. So Stanford, Cambridge, NUS in Singapore, California Institute of Technology, MIT, we don't even have to say, obviously it's very popular amongst our students, and University of Michigan. So these are trending universities for master's degrees. They are, obviously they have a very good ROI. You might spend a little more money, but these are also 6 universities that give heavy scholarships. So think about it, when you're thinking of high ranked institutions, you want to make sure you get enough scholarship. Otherwise it's hard for especially folks from India, right, for our countries. So think about these universities in a little more detail. Okay. For MBA, here are your 6 that again are known to give good substantial scholarships. Harvard, UPenn, which has the Wharton School of Business, brilliant program. HEC in Paris, INSEAD, IE, and London Business School, very popular programs, very well known amongst our students, and the hit rate for these schools are also pretty much high if you have a good GMAT score, a good profile to back you up. So important piece of advice to look at these programs. Okay. Financial aid. We put one slide on this because this is somewhere the biggest question a lot of students have is, how do I get this done? How do I go out and study when I cannot really fund it? Like I said, think about funding as your last step. It doesn't really hurt if you're talking to institutions, trying to see if you can get an admit. You don't have to pay much there. You pay small application fees. But if you start thinking about finance early on, you're not going to do anything because it will just stress the hell out of you. So keep it for later. But there are a lot of ways in which you can finance your studies, right? First is scholarships. So schools themselves will give a lot of need-based or merit-based scholarships that, of course, you should apply for. But there are also a lot of privately and government-funded scholarships that you can avail, even if you're from India, right? There are things like there's something called the Bose Scholars Program. There's the Nehru Fulbright Scholarship. There's a Dhirubhai Ambani Scholarship. There are a lot of scholarships in India itself, right? But say scholarships don't work for you, the next option is also on-campus employment. So there are things like graduate assistantships and teaching assistantships that happen on campus. So you're literally working at the school and it's in turn paying for your studies. And that's a very popular option that you have to think of, right? So don't let finances bog you down. Talk to us. We are also connected with a lot of banks. Some of our partners also give loans with no collateral. So there are banks that will not require you to, put a house as collateral or, something else, gold or whatever you have as collateral. No, they will give you just based on your scores. So definitely talk to us about those kind of financing opportunities and see if you can get assisted that way. If nothing else works, you have to be like Rachel from Friends, right? You have to get one of those job things. That's it, right? It could be a part-time job. It could be partial full-time job, but there are ways to work it out. And there are a lot of people, be it US, Canada, wherever, you can get help. You can get jobs. These would be small jobs, unlike what we think of in India, but very helpful. I'm going to quickly sift through the next few slides. The top factors in any application are, of course, your application quality itself, but the academic scores that you have. your essays, letters of recommendations, and your statement of purpose. Fourth one is your work experience. And fifth one, in case of MBA especially, is that college interview. These are 5 aspects of your application that you have to focus heavily on. Okay, we'll get straight to FAQs. So start posting your questions. We have about 15 minutes, so we'll take some questions. Before the webinar, we identified some of the questions that you guys had already sent us, and we put it out here. So I will answer that here. The first one we got was from Rashmi. This was, do I need GRE, GMAT for my master's application? The answer is yes and no. A GRE or a GMAT score will really help put your profile above a lot of people. You can augment the lack of those scores with a better work experience or something else. Say you have some patents on your name, right? So those will be okay for you to ask for a GRE or a GMAT waiver. But remember that if you're searching for the average GRE or GMAT score at any institution, as an Indian student, you have to always keep it a few points higher, a few notches higher, because there's also a quota for India, right? And there's a lot of students applying from India. So as an example, the typical median GMAT score at Harvard will show around 700, but for Indians, it will be around 720, right? So you have to think about that. The next question was from Shorab. How much work experience is ideal when studying an MBA? Like I said, 2 years is good enough, but the higher the rank of the school, the more work experience you need. So if you're going to a Wharton or a Kellogg, they will look for at least 5 to 8 years of work experience in your profile, unless you have other things to help augment and make your profile look better. Okay, third one from Millie is studying abroad safe these days? No place is safe. You can get hit by a car even when you're walking on a road near your place, right? But remember that institutions outside, especially in America, in Canada and the US, they have police departments dedicated on campus with police cars that literally have the university name on it. Campuses are really safe in the US and in Canada. There's a lot of crime in almost every city in the globe, and so is the case with US and Canada as well. So is the case with UK and other European countries. But that doesn't mean, you know, you read one piece of news somewhere and say, oh, it's unsafe. No, don't do that. You know, keep your heart at it and go for it, right? The next one is, can I still apply for fall 2019? Very interesting question. So fall would mean that by now your applications should have gone out because visas will take time. There are universities that are open to fall 2019. And in fact, some of our partner institutions are still open for fall 2019. But I must tell you that the top 20 to 30 ranked institutions at every country will not really accept your application at this point. It is very, very hard. There will be other schools, and that's only if you're not looking for a ranked institution. There is still a very slim chance, so reach out to us if you're looking for that. Can I work part-time while studying in Canada? Of course you can, and you should work part-time while studying in Canada. A lot of our students do, and it helps them make whatever money they can. The minimum wage is about $9 to $11 USD per hour. So that's what you can expect to earn while you're working. Can you tell if universities with a spot offer are trustworthy? Okay, there's a spell error there, but spot offers, yes, why not? There are some very credible institutions like University of North Carolina does a lot of spot admission offers. Northeastern, even though it's filled with a lot of Indians, is a good university still. They do spot admissions. So there are some universities who are really good when it comes to spot admissions, but be very careful because that's only about 10%, 90% of them may not really be your place to go. So talk to someone and get your questions answered before you pay any money or accept an offer. That's it, guys. We'll get to your questions now in the last 10 minutes, but congratulations on even making the decision to go abroad and study. We really wish you all the best and hope you achieve a lot of success in what you want to do. That's our goal. Um, Quickly, some highlights for our next webinar. We are going to have some guest speakers coming on board. Maria Potapkina is one of them, who's a PhD in economics. She's very successful in the US, and she has volunteered to talk to all our students. We also have 2 or 3 other students from other nationalities, just to give you guys an idea of how an international experience looks like. So that's coming up next. And before we start the questions, remember that we are now running a special spot offer. So on all our packages on iSchool Connect, you can get a 50% discount if you reach out to us within the next 20 hours. You will have an email in your inbox with more details on that. That's it from my side, and I will open up for questions. Okay, so one question we have is, are there any universities that take students without GRE scores? Okay, yes, so we did answer that question just now, but I'm saying this again. There are universities. Talk to us to get a quick list of what kind of universities those are that will take your scores without a GRE and give you an admit. That does happen quite a lot, I must say. But a GRE score is always good when it comes to applying to institutions. You, as an Indian student, if you want to get to the top 20 or top 30, you're looking at a score of at least 320 on the GRE, right? Or at least a 680 on the GMAT. And 680 is at least, like if you're looking at top 10, you have to be in the 710, 720 range, right? Okay, the next one is, what are the benefits of a spring semester? Great question. This is typically for all those lazy, late people who just woke up saying, oh my God, I just finished with my bachelor's degree and it's April right now. And they realize that, oh, I'm too late to go to university in fall, which starts in August. So for that reason, the spring intake exists. That's one reason. The other reason is that in some countries, like in India, our usual academic cycle is from April to March, right? We start school April, May, and we end it in March. But there are some countries where school starts in January and ends in December. So the academic year is the same as the calendar year. So for them, the spring intake works a lot. So that's the reason you have the spring intake. It's not very popular, right? Think of it, in India, no school starts in January. There are some who are doing it now, but in the US, Canada, UK, again, it's just like ours. It's popular to start in August only. Okay. I am in class 12 commerce. What do you suggest I should be doing currently? I plan to do CA followed by CFA and then an MBA abroad. Okay, so very interesting. So if you're doing your commerce in 12th right now and you plan to do CA followed by CFA and then an MBA, I'm a little concerned on what you think of where you see yourself in the next, say, 10 years, right? That's the question I asked you initially. Do you see yourself as a qualified CFA doing audit? Do you see yourself as someone managing a team? Because you don't really need, if you want to be an auditor, you want to be head of audit, you don't need an MBA typically. You need it only beyond that, where you can actually think of doing an executive MBA program after you've done with your CFA, you're now doing audit or accounting in general. And then 5 or 6 years down, while you're working, you can literally convince your company to fund your MBA, right? So if you're thinking in the lines of CA and CFA, don't try to fuse it with an MBA already, because this is what a lot of typical students do, is they think the more degrees I have, the better. That's not always the right case. That's not always what you should be doing. So talk to us if you want. We'll help understand your profile a little more and see if, what you really want. Is it business? If yes, you might really skip CFA, even giving all those 4 or 5 exams for qualifying, and then the CA, which is even tougher with 2 to 4% success rate, right? Then you want to go for an MBA. So strongly advise think of it more carefully, because you might spend the next 10 years studying otherwise, right? Okay. I'm 31, and what are the chances of getting a student visa at this point? Okay. Yes, this one. Okay, I'm 37 years old. Can I do MBA without GMAT or GRE? Yes, so age is no bar for an MBA. I'll tell you this interesting thing. When I was doing my MBA, the oldest person in my class was 58 years old. We had a woman who was 58 years old who wanted to go back to the Philippines and start her NGO. So she did her MBA with us. Age doesn't matter. The work experience and the quality of work experience, your scores and your motivation, your statement of purpose on why you want to do an MBA, that really matters the most. And that's what you should be looking at. Okay, we have time for probably a couple more questions. I am an electronics undergrad and want to pursue MS in machine learning. Yeah. If you've done electronics, if you've done telecommunication, these are programs that quickly and easily tie into computer science. We have a lot of our students who are from an electronics background and who are doing machine learning, where it really helps. If you think of it, machine learning requires a lot of compute power, which also requires a lot of understanding of the hardware itself. Again, I come from that field, so I really understand that well. So an electronics major already is wired to think about machine learning and artificial intelligence in the right way. So schools are very open to those kind of profiles. But again, top it with a good GRE score. Hopefully you have a good GPA as well. Then build the application in a way in which it looks like a nice gift with a blue wrapper and a nice bow, and you give it to the university. In the end, that's what matters the most, is when they look at your resume, in the first 3 seconds, are they able to see your complete profile? Are you highlighting all the right things? Because I don't know if you guys know, a typical resume is not looked at for more than 3 seconds before it's taken further, right? Okay. All right. So that's it. We do have some more questions that the team has sent, but we will answer those questions separately. We will reach out to you by email. But guys, I hope this was worthy enough. I see some feedback. Do send us your feedback either through email or on chat or on the webinar itself. Your feedback helps us improve a lot on what we are giving back to students like you, right? So good luck with everything. Do well in life. Remember that there's an offer that we are running. Again, we charge the lowest fees in the market because our primary goal, along with Google, is to help you guys get the best out of your future education. So reach out to us with all your questions. Happy to answer any of those, and we can get on any consultation calls with you if needed as well. Take care, good luck, and talk to you guys in the next webinar. Bye-bye.